Ethereum emerged in 2015 as one of the most revolutionary cryptocurrencies in history. Created by Vitalik Buterin, a young Russian-Canadian programmer, Ethereum was designed to be more than just a digital currency. Its innovation lay in its smart contract platform, which allowed for the creation of decentralized applications, DApps, directly on the blockchain. This technology offered a new way to transact, create, and interact without the need for traditional intermediaries, deeply transforming the way we understand the financial market, contracts, and even digital governance. Ethereum not only challenged financial structures, but also promised to give power and decision-making autonomy to the average user. However, as Ethereum gained popularity, a major challenge emerged: scalability. Ethereum used a consensus mechanism called proof of work, POW, which required immense computational power to validate transactions. Miners who competed to solve complex mathematical problems were rewarded with ETH for their efforts. However, this process came with a high cost, both environmentally and economically. The energy consumption of proof-of-work networks was astronomical, leaving a significant carbon footprint and creating growing difficulties in maintaining an efficient network as more people joined the system. Moreover, while proof-of-work was secure, it was limited in its ability to scale as demand increased. Transactions became slow and expensive, and Ethereum, which was supposed to be a solution for the future, began to bump against its own limitations. Validation times increased, gas fees soared, and the user experience became increasingly unsustainable. Ethereum had reached a tipping point, and something had to be done to ensure its continuity and growth. The pressure to find a more efficient and sustainable solution led to a radical transformation. The transition to proof-of-stake, PoS, would be the key to solving these problems and rewriting the future of blockchain. Proof-of-work, or POW, has been the cornerstone of cryptocurrencies since Bitcoin's inception, being crucial for ensuring the security and decentralization of networks. However, its operation proved unsustainable in large networks like Ethereum's. POW requires miners to use vast amounts of energy to solve complex computational problems, leading to high operational costs. Moreover, as more miners join the network, the difficulty of these problems increases, making it even harder and more expensive for new participants to join the transaction validation process. This vicious cycle continually raises the entry barriers, concentrating mining power in large server farms, which goes against the principle of decentralization that blockchain is built upon. Another negative impact of POW is the sheer amount of energy consumed, leading to a massive carbon footprint. The Ethereum network, being one of the largest in the world, consumes more energy than entire countries. In 2021, it was estimated that Ethereum's energy consumption surpassed that of countries like Argentina or the Netherlands. This excessive consumption raises environmental and social concerns, especially in a context where there is increasing pressure for technologies to become more sustainable. The crypto community, largely composed of enthusiasts of technological innovations, began to realize that the proof-of-work model could not be the foundation for the future, particularly when the shift to a greener alternative became more and more urgent. Moreover, POW was also a bottleneck for Ethereum's scalability. Transactions on the network were not only slow but also expensive, directly impacting the user experience. With the increasing use of the network, the cost of transaction fees, known as gas fees, skyrocketed, making it unaffordable for many to use Ethereum. The main promise of Ethereum decentralization and the democratization of financial services was being undermined by the difficulty of accessing the network and the exclusion of smaller users. The solution to these problems was at stake, and proof-of-stake PoS emerged as the alternative that would save Ethereum from an imminent crisis. Since its launch, Ethereum has secured a central position in the world of cryptocurrencies. Vitalik Buterin and his team created a platform that allowed for much more than simple financial transactions. With smart contracts and innovation that enabled the automation of agreements without the need for intermediaries, Ethereum became the foundation for a vast array of decentralized applications, dApps. The idea was to free the digital economy from the clutches of large corporations and governments, enabling anyone with internet access to participate in a global economic system without needing a bank account or approval from a centralized entity. Ethereum's success quickly attracted global attention. Its blockchain became the cornerstone for a growing number of projects within the crypto ecosystem, with notable mention going to decentralized finance, DeFi, non-fungible tokens, NFTs, and even new governance protocols. As an open platform, any developer could create their own dApps, leading to an explosive growth in the number of projects built on its network. Ethereum's promise to decentralize and democratize the economy was seen as a revolution in the financial sector and beyond, having a significant impact on how we think about digital ownership, contracts, and identity on the Internet. However, as the network grew in strength, technical problems started to become more apparent. The increasing number of users and transactions, coupled with the limitations of proof of work, were putting the sustainability of the network at risk. Ethereum, originally envisioned as an accessible and efficient platform, was beginning to hit its own limitations. The crypto community found itself facing a dilemma. Either the network evolved to overcome these obstacles, or Ethereum's future would be compromised. It was within this context of impending crisis that the idea of migrating to proof of stake emerged, seeking not only to solve these problems, but also to ensure that the network would continue to be the backbone of a new global financial system. The merge was a historic milestone in the evolution of Ethereum. This event represented the merger of the Ethereum network with the Beacon chain, which had already been operating under the proof-of-stake PoS system. On September 15, 2022, after years of planning and development, Ethereum finally transitioned to the new system, permanently eliminating its dependence on proof of work. This moment was considered by many as the first step toward a more sustainable future for cryptocurrencies, marking a turning point for the network and the entire crypto ecosystem. The merge was not just a technical update, but also a symbol of Ethereum's ability to innovate and adapt to the new needs of the market. The transition from proof of work to proof of stake was not a simple process. It involved months of testing, simulations, and adjustments to ensure that the network remained secure and efficient during and after the switch. Ethereum had to convince both miners and validators that this change would not compromise the decentralization and security of the network. Many miners who relied on Ether mining for profit resisted the change. However, the Ethereum Foundation worked tirelessly to communicate the benefits of PoS, such as lower energy consumption and reduced transaction fees. And in the end, the transition occurred successfully, without major failures or interruptions in the network. The impact of the merge was immediate and profound. The Ethereum network, now operating under proof of stake, saw a significant reduction in its energy consumption, leading to a drastic decrease in its carbon footprint. Additionally, with the introduction of validators in place of miners, the network security was maintained, but with a more efficient and sustainable structure. Ethereum, which previously consumed the same amount of energy as entire countries, was now becoming an example of how cryptocurrencies can evolve into a greener and more responsible model. This event also brought more trust to the crypto community, and investors who began to see Ethereum not only as an innovative technology, but also as a viable model for the future of decentralized finance. The transition to proof of stake brought significant changes to the Ethereum ecosystem. One of the most notable transformations was the way the network came to be validated. Before, the process of validating transactions was carried out by miners who competed to solve complex calculations in a highly energy-consuming process. With PoS, validators replaced miners. To validate transactions and create new blocks, validators now needed to stake or deposit a certain amount of Ether, ensuring that if they made a mistake or acted dishonestly, they would lose a portion of that stake. This new system brought more efficiency, as it did not rely on computational power, and greater security, because the cost of attacking the network was much higher, as attackers would need to compromise large amounts of Ether. In addition to the change in validators, proof of stake also resulted in a significant reduction in transaction fees. Ethereum, which previously suffered from high gas fees due to network congestion and the limitations of PoW, began to see improvements in this regard. The proof-of-stake system is more efficient in utilizing the network's resources, which allowed transactions to become faster and cheaper. This improvement attracted even more developers and investors to the platform, making Ethereum a more viable option for building new decentralized applications, DApps, and smart contracts. Another important effect was the environmental impact. Proof of work, with its high energy consumption, had made Ethereum a constant target of criticism, especially from environmentalists and regulators. PoS, by eliminating the need for miners competing for computational power, drastically reduced the network's energy consumption. The shift to PoS made Ethereum one of the largest cryptocurrencies to adopt a sustainable model, positioning itself as an example within the blockchain industry on how it is possible to combine technological innovation with environmental responsibility. With the transition to proof of stake, Ethereum's economic model underwent a profound transformation. In the old proof-of-work system, miners were rewarded with Ether for their participation in validating transactions, with the amount of ETH mined depending on the computational power dedicated to the process. In proof-of-stake, rewards are now distributed among validators, those who stake their Ether to ensure the network's security and operation. This new model not only eliminates excessive energy use, but also creates a more direct incentive for users to participate in maintaining the network in a more accessible way. Instead of purchasing expensive hardware and consuming large amounts of energy, anyone with Ether can become a validator and receive rewards, as long as they are willing to stake a portion of the token. Staking, one of the key innovations of proof of stake, became a new way to generate income within the Ethereum ecosystem. Instead of simply holding Ether as a store of value, users now have the opportunity to lock their ETH in staking contracts, earning periodic rewards for maintaining the network. This model brought a new level of adoption to Ethereum, attracting both traditional investors and more experienced users who see staking as a way to generate passive income from their digital assets. With its new features, Ethereum began to resemble more conventional financial models, with a more dynamic and accessible internal economy. However, the new system also brought economic challenges. The introduction of validators and staking Ether created a concentration of power in the hands of large ETH holders, raising concerns about the centralization of the network. While proof of stake was designed to be more inclusive, allowing more people to participate in validation, the capital required to be a successful validator, i.e., a significant amount of Ether, may limit the participation of smaller users. Concentration of staking in the hands of a few large validators or staking pools is one of the most frequent criticisms of PoS, as this could lead to a decrease in the decentralization of the system, which is one of Ethereum's core principles. Ethereum's transition to proof of stake was not without regulatory challenges and criticisms. The proof-of-work model had always been seen as more transparent, as anyone with the necessary computational power could participate in validating transactions. However, proof-of-stake raised concerns about the centralization of validation power. Large staking pools and validators with substantial amounts of Ether began to dominate the network, raising fears that Ethereum, which has always been founded on decentralization, could become more susceptible to power centralization. Critics pointed out that with the requirement of large amounts of Ether to become a significant validator, the system favored large investors, creating an elite group of validators that could undermine the true essence of a decentralized network. Furthermore, the new proof-of-stake model attracted the attention of financial regulators in various countries. The central issue was whether staking rewards should be treated as taxable income. In some jurisdictions, the question of how to classify staking rewards raised uncertainties, with some regulators suggesting they could be considered a form of passive income subject to taxation. Others questioned whether staking practices complied with securities laws, as some viewed staking as a form of lending or collective investment. These legal uncertainties present a barrier to the global adoption of proof of stake, as more countries and institutions try to understand and regulate new forms of participation and reward within the crypto system. However, criticisms of PoS are not limited to concerns about centralization and regulatory issues. Many also question the security of the system. Proof of stake, while more energy efficient, relies on the stake of validators to maintain network security. This means that if a significant number of validators decide to act dishonestly or maliciously, there could be vulnerabilities in the network. While penalizing dishonest validators is a security measure, some argue that proof of stake could be more vulnerable to certain types of attacks compared to proof of work, which ensures network security through the massive competition among miners. Thus, the criticisms of PoS security remain one of the main issues that still need to be addressed before the model can be considered a fully robust solution for Ethereum and other blockchains. With the transition to proof of stake, the future of decentralized applications, dApps, and decentralized finance, DeFi, on Ethereum opened up to a new era. Proof of stake brought significant improvements in scalability, speed, and transaction costs, creating a more efficient environment for the development and deployment of dApps. Prior to the transition, many dApps and DeFi platforms faced difficulties due to high transaction fees and network slowness. With PoS, Ethereum became more accessible and efficient, allowing developers to build innovative solutions without the limitations that previously existed. The low transaction costs and the higher processing capacity for transactions per second, TPS, make Ethereum an even more attractive platform for those wanting to create new solutions in the crypto space. Moreover, proof of stake enabled greater financial inclusion through dApps and DeFi. By lowering entry barriers and making transactions faster and cheaper, Ethereum opened the doors for a growing number of users, from small investors to developers in emerging markets. Decentralized finance, which seeks to create alternatives to traditional banking systems, gained momentum after the transition to PoS. With the new structure, the participation costs and DeFi platforms decreased, allowing more people to participate in building an alternative financial system. This financial inclusion has the potential to transform economies, especially in regions where access to the banking system is limited or non-existent. Proof of stake is also creating new opportunities for tokens and other innovations in the crypto space. As Ethereum becomes more efficient and sustainable, the number of projects using the network as a base for their tokens is growing at an accelerated pace. Ethereum, which pioneered many aspects of blockchain, continues to be a hub for innovation, with developers creating new forms of tokenization, decentralized governance, and DeFi solutions. The impact of this is profound. Ethereum has not only solidified its position as the leader in smart contracts, but also became the cornerstone of a new generation of decentralized financial technologies, driven by the trust and efficiency of proof of stake. The transition to proof of stake brought not only a technical improvement to the Ethereum network, but also a positive and necessary environmental impact. Before PoS, Ethereum was one of the most criticized cryptocurrencies in terms of energy consumption. Proof of work, with its demand for significant computational power, caused the network to consume an impressive amount of energy, often compared to the consumption of entire countries. This carbon footprint became one of the biggest concerns for both the crypto community and environmentalists around the world. With the move to proof of stake, the Ethereum Foundation not only responded to a growing demand for sustainability, but also proved that it is possible to maintain security and decentralization without harming the environment. Proof of stake drastically reduced the network's energy consumption, making Ethereum more eco-friendly and aligned with sustainability principles. The new consensus structure does not rely on complex calculations to validate transactions. eliminating the need for mining, which was the main culprit behind high energy consumption. This change helped reduce Ethereum's carbon footprint by over 99%, positioning the blockchain as one of the most sustainable within the crypto sector. Additionally, this innovation not only benefited Ethereum's image, but also paved the way for other cryptocurrencies and blockchains to follow suit and adopt greener models, driving the evolution of a more environmentally conscious industry. In addition to benefiting the environment, the proof-of-stake model also contributes to building a more sustainable economy within the network. Staking Ether by incentivizing validators to uphold the network security and integrity creates a more efficient economic cycle where resources are allocated more rationally and conscientiously. This low-energy impact model makes Ethereum an example of how technological innovation and sustainability can go hand in hand, representing a model for the future of cryptocurrencies and their potential applications in a world increasingly concerned with environmental issues. Ethereum's transition to proof-of-stake was not just a technical upgrade. It was a historic milestone that redefines not only the Ethereum network, but also the future of cryptocurrencies in general. The legacy of this transition is clear. Ethereum proved that with innovation and commitment, it is possible to tackle technological and environmental challenges, creating a system that is more efficient, secure, and sustainable. By adopting proof-of-stake, the Ethereum Foundation not only overcame the limitations of proof-of-work, but also paved the way for a new era in the crypto ecosystem, where scalability, sustainability, and inclusion are top priorities. The future of Ethereum is now brighter than ever. The migration to PoS, though not without its challenges, has created a solid foundation for the network's future growth. The evolution of dApps, DeFi, and NFTs within the Ethereum ecosystem will become more dynamic as the network becomes more accessible, faster, and cost-effective. The transition also positions Ethereum as a leader in sustainable practices within the cryptocurrency world, something that will be increasingly valued as the global market seeks greener and more efficient solutions. Ethereum 2.0 is not just an advanced version of the original Ethereum, but a reinvention of how cryptocurrencies and blockchain can operate in a more efficient way and positively impact society. The impact of proof-of-stake, both on Ethereum and the broader crypto space, will be felt for many years to come. Ethereum's transition to PoS not only represents a technical victory, but also a paradigm shift for cryptocurrencies as a whole. With this, Ethereum paves the way for a more scalable, sustainable, and secure blockchain capable of meeting the needs of a rapidly evolving market. As new innovations emerge, the transition to proof-of-stake will become a fundamental milestone in the history of blockchain technology, with Ethereum continuing to be the epicenter of this revolution.